So I posted a couple pictures up on Twitter the other day of my favorite decks, and people that I'm assuming have won a lot of games in Broken Arrow are saying they're trash or they don't understand it. Need to reiterate again, I've played hundreds of hours of Broken Arrow already. I've played hundreds of games. I mean, even just this test, I've played almost 100 games for the last week or so or whatever. Been testing it for a couple of years now. The devs literally have recognized me as one of the most experienced people. This is something that's established. Like I know the game much better than you guys that have been playing for like the last week or whatever. So doesn't mean that I'm always going to be right. Doesn't mean that you have to use this deck, any of that stuff. It's just that the amount of information that I'm using and that my experience with the game is not 10 days old. Or yeah, actually it's been 10 days exactly actually since this the beta's been. It's actually a couple years old. So getting that out of the way, I'm going to talk through right now what I think is the best Russian deck. Now, it doesn't mean that if a full 5 stack of people that are in a Discord are able to coordinate with air power and their tanks and stuff like that, it's going to be beaten or it's not going to be beaten. This is if I have one deck and I am facing one player, I think that this deck will win every single time if you play it correctly. That is what I'm trying to explain, and the same thing with the US deck, making it, in my mind, the best deck. Period. That's it. And I'm going to go through unit to unit, explain its strengths, explain their weaknesses, explain why I'm picking them. We'll see how long this video takes. I'll try to make it as quickly as possible. The 57 millimeters is something that you're going to be hearing about a lot when it comes to Russia. 57 millimeters and their fancy make-believe tanks, because they don't actually use them, and also their APCs, but they are in this game. So methinks that they're going to be adding some other units for some other nations that are also kind of make-believe, and maybe they're not in use yet. Like maybe they're going to add AIM 260s. I'm not sure if they're going to add AIM 260s or any of like the prototype and in development weapon systems and vehicles and stuff like that. But this is the armadas and the T-15s are going to be what the stopping point is for a lot of people, because they think they're overpowered and stuff like that. Abrams destroy all of these, and we'll talk about that when I talk about my American deck. But anyway, 57 millimeters. You want as many of these mothers as you possibly can get. If you want to take the era, it's up to you. It's 10 points. It doesn't make too much of a difference, so I take the era. Some decks I use these, and I pretty much just bring these in sniper teams. The only thing that I use infantry for is weapon squads and for reconnaissance. That's it. That's all I use them for. Otherwise, vehicles are more mobile. They're more survivable. They have smoke so they can back up. They're just better. They are just better. For the way that the meta works for this game, they are just better. I use vehicles over infantry. Doesn't mean that if you play vehicles stupidly, they won't die to infantry. Doesn't mean that infantry can't be effective. It's just brass tacks. More times than not, vehicles are better than infantry in my experience, which is significant. So that's why I do bring more vehicles than infantry. Barely ever use these. I don't think I've thought of an opener where these are actually effective. I'd rather bring like a buck or something if planes are going to be flying over. I used to do the thing where, hey, I'll bring out some helicopters so that when the planes fly over, they have the igloos or they can fight on their own and stuff like that. Maybe when there's a more established, experienced player base, that will come into effect, as I think it will. But I think the air power and the opener with planes and stuff like that is really kind of owning the game right now. So I haven't used it much. And again, with the Sarmats, yes, they're cheap. Yes, they're mobile. But for the way that I've been running my games, I haven't found a need for them. But they're here. They're nice little sneaky infantry if you need, or not infantry, nice little sneaky recon if you need to. That could be stealthy. That's why they're here. Also with these two, with the two MI8s here, one has attackers, one has igloos, just as a little bit of extra fire support. But again, these are 125 points and 155 points for what they actually do. That's 380 points that I think I could use better somewhere else. That's just it. That's really it. I mean, it's 280 points. That's 280, almost 300 points is I think what I was going to say before. Almost 300 points. Math. That I think I can more effectively use someplace else than helicopters, that if I just mess up a little bit and miss one LAVAD or miss one Tunguska or miss one Igla squad or whatever, they're gonna probably die, unless I just play super passive or something, super defensive or something like that. Infantry squads are infantry squads. If I think they have a possibility of a tank going by them, I'll put the Rozvedka up there. If I don't think they're going to see anything, or if I don't think that anything's really going to go by, it's just something that I want to watch or something that I want to sneak up, I use the Sapri. That's pretty much it. Infantry squads. These infantry are really just here so that I can bring T-15s, because the T-15s are amazing with their APS and the 57mm and the attackers. The Motostrelki, they're expensive. Remember, everything costs points, right? So the AGS-40 are the cheapest, so that's why I stack up the AGS-40, the cheapest infantry squad. So always stack those up. And then I want at least 2 squads and one that I can bring in with the Cornets. If you find a way to ambush an Abrams, these mothers, especially the Cornet M's, are going to kill that Abrams if that player doesn't really know what they're doing. If they're not on the ball, even if they do know what they're doing with the smoke and being able to back up and the right angles and stuff like that, chances are the Cornets are going to be able to get them, except within seconds you're going to have F-35 dropping JDAMs or dropping the Stormbreakers on your face, and that building's going to come down if you're in a building, or that tree line's going to go away if you are in a tree line, so that's why I don't use infantry. Practically never use these. What I do use a lot, though, are the T-15s, so that's why I did the 4 AGS and I did the 2 Motostrelki. Motostrelki are probably one of, if not the best infantry in the game with their RPG-30s, the 2 PKMs, and the grenade launchers. Obviously, the Marine Raiders on the other side are very good, too, but they don't have the same kind of ability that you can get, the total ability of buying this unit that I think that the Motostrelki can get between the effectiveness of the fire support and the armor killing ability. Because I see those Marines, I see those Marine Raiders up against vehicles all the time, and sure, they'll do some damage, and sure, it's scary, sure, you'll probably want to back up, but it's only really the Motostrelki that I see that when they're up against some vehicles, they actually end up killing it because of this RPG-28. I don't know what it is, it's just that's what I see. So that's the Motostrelki are super effective. If you're going to be using infantry, make sure you use these guys. Also, I've seen similar with the Rozvedka as well, if you guys want to stack those up while I was mentioning that. They are pretty good with their tandem RPGs and stuff like that. Anyway, also they're 8-man squads, guys, as opposed to the 4 and 5 that you keep seeing everywhere else. That's why I do not bring VDV. They're 5-man squads. Yes, they have the good RPG. It's just it's too few people. It's just too few. But really, the only thing I use here are the T-15s. The T-15s will carry games. You put 2 of these together with a T-90 or an Armada, and that's your little pushing force. I've made a couple of videos talking about that. So, of course, with 6 of these, that's your 3 lines. You push one, get it hurt a little bit, go resupply, use your smoke, use your attackers on the Abrams. Make sure you hit those attackers, and they'll be chewing up the Abrams, at least get them scared, at least get them hurt. Back them up, reload them, resupply them. Move up the next wave, whether it be another couple of T-15s and a T-90 or a couple of T-15s and a recon or whatever. These things just chew up vehicles, infantry, helicopters, all that stuff. T-15s are the deck, really. They are amazing. T-90Ms with Arena because APS. This is the best T-90 that you can get. This is just, if you want to bring a tank, this is what you bring. Armadas are pretty good because what they can do is they can bait. People know it's like the obvious, like even if they haven't spent much time in the game, they know like, oh, that's a super tank. That's worth 400 points. That's pretty much all I use it for. And if I want to get them to go after a specific unit or a specific push, then I put Armada with them because that's just what people do. People go after the Armadas. Armada's right. And obviously, or you'll say Armada's right, Armada's left, whatever. Then it just seems to work that way. They always seem to push it. They seem to hit it with artillery. I can bait it. I can move it around, stuff like that, that will get them to be looking at this. And then meanwhile, there's T-15s and a T-90 that's pushing around them. BAPT Terminators, I really only use these as second-line attacker throwers. They will tandem fire these attackers, and they're very good against Abrams. That's pretty much it. The reason why I keep talking about Abrams is because as long as you have a few Abrams, they will destroy this line. You will kill a few Abrams, especially if you use your attackers correctly, from the T-15s and the BMPTs. But Abrams will roll T-15s, T-14s, and T-90s. They are better tanks. They just are. If you are worried about running up against Russian armor, bring American armor. End of story. And don't pussyfoot around. Actually push. Actually hit hard. Try and keep them alive, but get your shots in. Actually get your shots in, and you'll win with American armor most of the time. And just watch out for those attackers, and you'll be fine. Coalizias can be pretty dangerous. I don't know what it is about like the fire rate or whatever, but I've stacked up 3 and 4 of these, and it's just they just annihilate compared to the Paladins on the other side for America. These things just annihilate. If I'm worried about anti-air where I can't bring bombs, if I need to bring some buildings down, if I need to kill some infantry, if I need to put down a layer of smoke or whatever, I bring in a couple of these, if not quad stack, and they're just annihilate. They just annihilate stuff. They drop down buildings. A couple of salvos and the things are dead. And it's also great for wasting supplies for you and the other team, because once you quad stack a couple of these and you shoot a couple of times, the other team's going to throw planes at it. They're going to try to counter already. As long as you're moving them around, you're good to go. Just remember to move them. Duravitsias, these things are great. 57 millimeter. You can gauge ground targets. You turn the radar on. You can snipe some helicopters. People aren't expecting it. You can be sneaky with it. Again, with engaging ground targets, it's super useful for the opener. Go watch my new player deck videos if you don't understand what's going on with those. They're just great. That's why I bring 4 of them. Buck M3s, even when turned off, they're really good against planes. Turn the radar on, and they can snipe planes pretty well. I use these over the S300s. They're the same price, and I just think they're better. You bring more ammo. The range isn't the same, but when it comes to view distances and actual engagement ranges for most combat in the game, this is great. This really is great. Tor, just you can kind of like stick it behind buildings, and I had an extra 200 points. I'm not sure what it is about the Tor, but sometimes I find it just doing really well. So I'm still kind of, the jury's still out between the Buck M3 and the Tor. I find these doing really well against planes. I find this doing pretty well against helicopters. So, like I said, jury's kind of out as it is. Both of them do pretty well, and I like them over the S300. And I don't really use artillery too much past the Colizios, so that's why you're not seeing anything like the Tazas and stuff like that. Mi-26 for transport and for cargo, Mi-8 for transport and for cargo, NM for the Elmers, because I think that they are the best ATGM when it comes to helicopters, at least in the game. And the view distance of the 2400, and I bring 2 Mi-28Ns with the view distance 2400 with the optics package there, and it can bait because most of the time people see Mi-28 and they think it's a NM, and they think it's going to have the Elmers, or they think it's going to be 300-point helicopter, and they'll send planes after it. Most of the time, you will kill the planes that come after it as long as you are intelligent enough to bring AA, or you have some planes that are going to help you out. So the Cab 1500s, I don't bring 3 of them because I'd rather bring 2 with the inner pylons, because then it's a 340-point plane that will have 2 Cab 1500s. That is amazing. I'm able to bring 2 of them. So 2 planes with 2 R-2070Rs. So I can kind of have them as like a little bit of support against planes, or if they're doing the airdrops at the beginning and stuff like that, I can send these out. And then once they drop, the Cab 1500s are going to be waiting for them on the ground. So these are amazing. They're great. For 340 points, I think these are the best setup in the game for planes, personally. Su-57, you have the Seed, you have the 2 R-37s. If they're doing a lot of air spam, you can be sneaky with it. And the Su-25T, just because I had an extra 100 or 200 points there, because an extra 5 that you can't use. These always have the Vickers, or however you want to, Vickers, whatever you want to pronounce it with them. You can keep it in the back line, you keep it up high, and because of the radar package with the optics package there, you can see 10,000, 10 kilometers, so it's pretty good at spotting planes and spotting F-35s, and it's pretty chonky, so it can take a couple of hits. So I actually kind of use this pretty well in backline if I'm worried about air spam, if I just want to keep eyes out, and then also if people are being dumb, which they tend to do often, you can go in with the Vickers, and you can go in with your strafing runs, and with the rockets and the gun, it can do pretty well against vehicles and infantry in the open. And yeah, that is my Russian deck. As I've explained before, it's not like a I'm a best player in the game kind of thing. It's just that experience-wise, I'm trying to portray to you guys that I've played hundreds of hours already. This isn't 10 days old. This is hundreds of games, hundreds of hours. These same units. I've tried everything. I've done everything. I'm not saying that nothing else will work. I'm just saying that this is extremely effective. And if you know what you're doing, if you've seen these units, if you've used these units, try this deck. Use this deck. That's pretty much it. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you have a nice day. See you guys.